I am 70 years old today, and for a very long time, I believed that the silence of my empty house was a life sentence. I lived with the quiet conviction that once the partners of our youth depart and the children build their own distant castles, we are destined to become ghosts hovering in the margins of a world that has moved on. I regret, with a fierce and aching heart, that I did not realize much sooner how wrong I was. We build walls of pride and fear to protect our aging hearts from being wounded, only to realize those very walls have locked out the sunlight. If you are sitting in a quiet room today, listening to the ticking of a grandfather clock or watching the shadows lengthen across an empty floor, I want you to listen to me very closely. Do not let the quiet fool you into thinking your story is finished. My name is Clara Sterling. I live in a weathered, shingle-style cottage overlooking the rugged, wind-swept coast of Camden, Maine. Out here, the Atlantic Ocean crashes against the dark granite rocks with a relentless, passionate fury. For decades, this house was a sanctuary of noise. It was filled with the heavy footsteps of my husband, Thomas, the chaotic laughter of our 3 children running down the wooden hallway, the smell of roasted garlic, and the constant, vibrant hum of a life fully lived. I was a landscape designer, a woman who spent her days working with soil, coaxing life out of the earth, mapping out gardens that would outlive me. I was strong, passionate, and fiercely connected to the world. But time is an unyielding sculptor. It chips away at our lives until only the core remains. First, the children grew up and scattered across the country, building careers in Seattle and London, their visits dwindling to polite holiday phone calls and brief, hurried summer weekends. Then, 5 years ago, Thomas died. The silence that followed his departure was not just an absence of sound. It was a physical weight. It pressed down on my chest, making it difficult to draw a full breath. I remember standing in our kitchen the morning after his funeral, holding a cold cup of chamomile tea, looking at his empty leather chair by the window. The house felt like a museum of lost things. My joints throbbed with the damp New England cold, but the pain in my body was nothing compared to the hollow ache in my soul. I felt discarded, like an old book left on a dusty shelf in a library no one visited anymore. I began to withdraw. I told myself that this was simply what aging looked like. I stopped walking down to the harbor. I let the weeds overtake the perennial beds I had spent 30 years cultivating. I fell into a dangerous, sedentary routine, sitting in the dark, watching television programs I did not care about, eating processed foods out of boxes. Because cooking a real meal for one person felt like a pathetic waste of effort, I was letting my body and my mind decay, convinced that my independence meant I had to suffer in absolute isolation. I did not want to be a burden to my children, so when they called, I lied. I told them I was busy, that I was fine, that my social calendar was full. In reality, the only voice I heard for days on end was my own, whispering to the walls. One evening during a particularly brutal November storm, the power went out. The wind howled against the window panes like a wild animal trying to gain entry. I sat in the pitch blackness, lit only by a single flickering beeswax candle. The cold began to seep through the floorboards. In that profound, absolute darkness, a wave of panic washed over me. My heart began to flutter frantically against my ribs, like a bird trapped in a cage. My breath caught in my throat, shallow and rapid. I realized with terrifying clarity that if I were to slip and fall on the icy cellar stairs, or if my heart were to simply stop beating, no one would know for days. I was completely, utterly alone. That realization did not break me. Instead, It sparked something raw and ancient within my soul. I felt a sudden, fierce surge of indignation. Why had I allowed myself to be pushed to the sidelines of my own existence? Why was I treating these precious golden years as a waiting room for the grave? I looked at my reflection in the dark glass of the window, illuminated by the candle. My face was lined with deep tracks of sorrow and time. My silver hair was wild, but my eyes still held the same spark of the young woman who had once traveled through Europe with nothing but a backpack and a sketchbook. I was still Clara. I was still alive. The next morning the storm cleared, leaving behind a world washed clean, glittering under a brilliant blue sky. I put on my heaviest wool coat, tied my boots with steady hands, and walked out the front door. The air was incredibly sharp, filling my lungs with a cold, invigorating rush that made my cheeks sting. I walked all the way down to the local harbor, where the fishing boats were bobbing against the docks. As I stood there, watching the gulls wheel against the sky, a voice startled me. "You look like a woman who is either deep in thought or planning an escape, Clara." I turned to see Arthur. He was a 73-year-old local woodworker, a man who had lost his wife to cancer nearly a decade earlier. I had known him casually for years, but we had never spoken deeply. He was wearing a red flannel shirt covered in cedar shavings, and his eyes were the color of the sea after a storm was weathered, yet incredibly warm. "Perhaps a bit of both," I replied, my voice sounding rusty from disuse. I had to swallow hard to clear the tightness in my throat. Arthur smiled, a slow, gentle expression that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "The harbor is good for that. But escaping is hard work on an empty stomach. Would you join me for a cup of coffee at the diner?" Every instinct inside me screamed to decline, to retreat back to the safety of my quiet cottage on High Street. I was terrified of vulnerability. I was afraid that opening myself up to another human being would expose the deep well of loneliness I had been hiding. But I looked at Arthur, saw the genuine, unhurried kindness in his posture, and decided to take a leap into the unknown. That simple cup of black coffee at the harbor diner changed the trajectory of my life. Arthur and I sat in a booth by the window for 3 hours. We did not talk about the weather or our ailments. We talked about the terrifying beauty of starting over when the world expects you to settle down. We spoke of our late spouses, not with the paralyzing grief of the newly bereaved, but with a tender, reverent gratitude for the love we had been fortunate enough to possess. I confessed to him my deep fear of becoming obsolete, of the terrible silence that haunted my kitchen. Arthur listened, his rough, calloused hands cradling his mug. "Clara," he said, his voice low and steady, "the silence isn't a prison unless you lock the door from the inside. When my Sarah died, I thought the music in my life had stopped forever. But then I realized that the silence was actually space. Space to hear myself think. Space to create. Space to love the world in a different way. We aren't done living. We are just in the autumn of our lives. And autumn is the most colorful season of all." A wave of warmth flooded my chest, washing away years of accumulated ice. In that moment, looking into Arthur's eyes, I felt a familiar, long-dormant heat stir within me. It was the return of passion, not just the romantic passion of youth, which burns like a wild, uncontrollable brush fire, but a mature, deep, and searing passion for existence itself. It was the realization that my capacity for love, joy, and profound human connection had not decayed with my bones. It was fully intact, waiting to be claimed. Over the next 2 years, Arthur and I built a relationship that became the anchor of my older years. We did not move in together, nor did we try to replicate the marriages of our youth. We kept our independence, but we shared our lives. We walked the rocky beaches of Maine, collecting sea glass and talking about philosophy. We cooked elaborate meals together, laughing as we spilled olive oil on the floor. And yes, we fell in love. Let no one tell you that romance belongs only to the young. The love of seniors is a masterpiece of design. It is free from the anxieties of building a career, raising children, or proving oneself to the world. It is a love built purely on appreciation, companionship, and a deep, shared understanding of the preciousness of time. When Arthur held my hand, his grip was firm and reassuring, a silent promise that we were navigating the twilight together, brave and unbroken. Through this connection, I also rediscovered my passion for my health and my body. I realized that my mental motivation was directly tied to how I treated my physical temple. I began to practice yoga in the mornings, feeling the slow, satisfying stretch of muscles that had grown stiff from neglect. I returned to my garden, burying my hands in the cool, rich soil, planting lavender and rosemary, breathing in the earthy scent of rebirth. I began to eat foods that nourished me: fresh fish from the harbor, leafy greens, berries sweet as summer wine. I stopped viewing my aging body as an enemy that was failing me and began to treat it as a loyal companion that had carried me through 70 years of joy, heartbreak, and survival. But my story is not just about finding Arthur. It is about a fundamental shift in how we view our place in this universe. Many of my peers tell me they feel lonely because their children do not call enough. I used to feel that resentment too, but wisdom has taught me to look at this through a lens of grace. Our children are in the thick of their own battles. They are raising our grandchildren, fighting to survive in a chaotic, fast-paced world. Navigating the turbulent waters of midlife, they do not neglect us out of malice. They neglect us because they are consumed by the very fire of life that we once occupied. Instead of sitting by the phone, waiting for a scrap of their time to feel validated, we must build our own communities. We must become the architects of our own joy. I started a weekly gathering at my cottage. I called it the High Street Supper Club. I invited 6 other seniors from the neighborhood, some widowed, some married, some who had lived alone their entire lives. We gathered every Thursday evening. There was Eleanor, a retired school teacher who could recite poetry from memory. Harold, a quiet man who had spent his life working on the railways. And Sophia, an artist whose hands shook when she held a teacup, but became steady as a rock when she held a paintbrush. In that dining room, under the warm glow of the chandelier, we created a sanctuary. We shared our triumphs and our deepest regrets. We laughed until our sides ached, and we held each other's hands when the tears of old grief surfaced. We realized that we were not isolated islands. We were a vibrant, interconnected archipelago, weathering the same ocean together. We discovered that when we share our stories, the phantom of loneliness vanishes into thin air. My dear friends, if you are listening to my voice today, I want you to make a promise to yourself. Tomorrow morning, when the sun rises, do not let your first thought be of what you have lost. Do not dwell on the youth that has slipped through your fingers like dry sand. Do not let your mind spiral into the dark, silent corners of regret. Instead, open your eyes and greet the day as an active participant. If your body is stiff, move slowly, but move. Feel the soles of your feet connecting with the floor. Look at your hands, those beautiful lined hands that have held babies, built homes, written letters, and comforted the dying. Those hands are still capable of holding a warm cup of coffee, turning the page of an inspiring book, or reaching out to touch the shoulder of a neighbor who is hurting. Step outside. Breathe the fresh air deeply, letting it fill your lungs, reminding you that every breath is a gift. a biological miracle that you are still here to experience. Go to a local park, a library, or a coffee shop. Look people in the eyes. Smile at the harried young mother struggling with her stroller. Say hello to the postman. Offer a word of encouragement to the teenager working behind the counter at the grocery store. You will be amazed at how quickly the world smiles back when you show it that you are still present. We are the keepers of wisdom. We are the librarians of history. A society that forgets its elders is a society without a soul. But we must not wait for society to invite us back to the table. We must pull up our own chairs, loud and proud, and remind them of who we are. We have survived wars, economic collapses, personal tragedies, and the slow, quiet erosion of time. We are resilient. We are magnificent. Do not let the quiet of your house convince you that you are alone. You are connected to millions of us all over this beautiful, turning earth who are watching the same sunset, feeling the same aches, and dreaming the same dreams of peace and connection. We are a silent army of sages, and it is time for us to step into the light. I look out my window now, watching the tide come in against the rocks of Camden. The sky is painted in shades of deep violet, fiery orange, and soft, dusty rose. It is a sunset of incredible, dramatic beauty, far more complex and breathtaking than the simple blue of a midday sky. This is our sunset, my friends. Let us not spend it in the dark. Let us live it with every ounce of passion, strength, and love we have left in our magnificent, enduring hearts. You are not alone. You have never been alone. We are walking each other home.